They laughed at Ozzy Osbourne's voice, until the moment he opened his mouth, and silence swallowed the room. Asterisk, asterisk. Famous vocal coach mocked Ozzy Osbourne's voice. Until Ozzy opened his mouth to sing, they said his voice was wrong, too nasal, too raw, too broken, a voice that didn't belong in any conservatory, any polished studio, or any textbook of perfect singing. And yet, that very voice would go on to shake generations. But on this night before the legend spoke, Ozzy Osbourne himself was treated like a joke. Asterisk. The room of perfect voices. Asterisk. The hall was immaculate. White walls, soft golden lights, a Steinway grand piano sitting at the center like royalty, rows of velvet chairs filled with students, critics, music journalists, and vocal professionals. On the banner behind the stage, bold letters read, "The Science of the Human Voice, Masterclass with Drive, Adrian Keller." Dr. Adrian Keller was not just famous, he was feared. A legendary vocal coach, a man who had trained opera singers, pop stars, Broadway icons, a man whose approval could launch careers or destroy them before they even began. He believed in precision, control, purity. To Keller, a voice was an instrument that must obey rules. And Ozzy Osbourne, Ozzy was everything Keller despised. That man ruined singing. Dr. Keller stood behind the podium, adjusting his glasses. His tone was confident, sharp, almost surgical. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "today we will discuss what makes a great voice, and what does not." The screen behind him flickered to life. A black and white image appeared. Ozzy Osbourne. Young, wild, long hair, eyes burning with chaos. A ripple of whispers spread across the audience. Keller smirked. "This," he said, tapping the screen, "is a perfect example of how popularity can deceive the public." Some students chuckled nervously. "Osbourne has no formal training," Keller continued. "Poor breath control, nasal distortion, unrefined vibrato. In classical terms, a disaster." The words hit like knives. "He succeeded," Keller added, "not because of skill, but because the industry lowered its standards." A louder laugh echoed from the back. No one noticed the man quietly standing near the side entrance, dressed in black, round glasses, silent. Ozzy Osbourne himself, the legend in the shadows. Ozzy hadn't planned to attend. He was invited anonymously, under the assumption that he wouldn't come. But Ozzy had learned something in his decades of survival. Never ignore disrespect. He stood there, hands in his coat pockets, listening as his life was reduced to a bullet point. To understand true vocal excellence, Keller said, we must reject voices like this. Ozzy's jaw tightened. Years flashed before him, being told he was useless in school, being fired from factory jobs, being laughed at in Birmingham pubs, being called talentless, replaceable, broken. They always said the same thing: you don't belong. Asterisk. The invitation that wasn't meant to be taken. Asterisk. A student raised her hand. Dr. Keller, she asked carefully, but isn't emotional impact also important? Keller smiled politely. Emotion without technique, he replied, is noise. That was when Ozzy stepped forward. The room shifted. Whispers turned into gasps. Someone dropped a notebook. Ozzy Osbourne was walking onto the stage. Dr. Keller froze. I'm sorry, Ozzy said calmly, his Birmingham accent thick and unmistakable. Am I in? The audience exploded into murmurs. Keller forced a laugh. Well, he said, this is unexpected. Ozzy glanced at the screen behind him, his younger self, frozen in judgment. You've said a lot about my voice, Ozzy continued. Thought maybe I'd listen in person. The room held its breath. The mockery continues. Keller cleared his throat. Mr. Osbourne, he said, masking his discomfort. This is an academic discussion. Ozzy nodded. Right. About me. A few students exchanged glances. Keller straightened. Since you're here, he said, perhaps you'd like to demonstrate what you believe makes your voice effective. The challenge was clear. Not an invitation, a trap. Ozzy smiled faintly. You got a piano? He asked. The pianist hesitated, then nodded. Keller leaned back. By all means. Some people smirked. Others felt uneasy. No one expected what was about to happen. The first note. Ozzy stepped toward the microphone. The lights dimmed slightly. No backing track. No effects. No band. Just a man. And his voice. He closed his eyes and sang. Not loud. Not aggressive. Soft. A haunting melody drifted into the room. Raw. Trembling. Honest. The kind of sound that didn't ask for permission. It confessed. Every crack carried pain. Every breath carried history. Every note carried survival. The laughter died instantly. The pianist forgot to play. People leaned forward. The voice they never understood. Ozzy's voice filled the hall not with perfection, but with truth. It wasn't polished. It was scarred. You could hear the factories, the streets, the hunger, the addiction, the battles survived and the friends lost. This wasn't technique. This was a life speaking. A woman in the second row wiped her eyes. A student's hands trembled. Even Keller's confident expression began to crack. Ozzy opened his eyes and sang louder when silence screamed louder than applause. The final note hung in the air. No one moved. No one clapped. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. The room was frozen in something heavier than sound. Ozzy lowered the mic. "That's my voice," he said. Quietly, he turned to Keller. "Not perfect, but it's mine." The coach, who had no answer, Dr. Keller, swallowed. For the first time all evening, he had nothing prepared. No terminology, no criticism, no lecture. Just reality. He adjusted his glasses, hands shaking. He began. But Ozzy raised a hand. "You teach people how to sing," Ozzy said. "I just taught my." The audience erupted. Not polite applause, a standing ovation. People shouted his name. Some cried openly. Keller stepped back, defeated not by volume, but by meaning. The lesson that changed everything. Ozzy turned to the students. "If someone tells you your voice is wrong," he said, "ask who made the rules." He walked toward the exit. Halfway there, he stopped. "And if you ever forget what music's for," he added, "listen with your heart, not your ego." Then he was gone. Epilogue. What they learned that night, that masterclass, was never held again, but the story spread. Students spoke of the night. Perfection lost to authenticity. Of how flawed voice shattered an entire philosophy. Dr. Keller retired 2 years later, and Ozzy kept singing. Still imperfect, still raw, still immortal. If this story gave you chills, if you believe Ozzy Osbourne is more than a voice, he's a soul, subscribe to Voices of Darkness, like this video, and share it with your friends. If you love Ozzy Osbourne, share this video right now. Help us complete our 1,000 subscribers target now. Prove your love. Legends don't live alone, they live through us.